Welcome to Intersect, a podcast where we find connection in each other's story. You know, it's been said that curiosity killed the cat, but in my case, it brought me to life when a little dog named History came barking at my wife and I when we were on our morning walk. As you can see, History is with us today with his owner, Latosha Cox. So, Latosha, there's a couple things. I want to know a little bit about History and the name and about you, and then we're going to find out about this curiosity thing. So, tell us what's going on. History, Latosha, curiosity.
Great day, great day, great day. So this is History Marie Cox. She's the new member of the Cox household, and she was rehomed to us. So my ex-husband Ray, friend JB, they took care of this pooch
Hmm.
for over a year. She's what, 15 months or so now,
Hmm.
and so they just were too busy for
Hmm.
her.
Hmm.
And so they asked if we would take this bougie dog in and we do when she loves to be dressed up. So I
Oh,
got her in.
yeah.
I got her in one of my oldest is so this onesie is 17 years old. So
Wow.
she loves to be dressed up and all the things. And so we've had her for has it been 3 months yet, Kayla? Yeah, 3 months. And she's our new addition, and she's very feisty. And so most times she's on a leash,
Uh-huh.
so that because she likes to run away and be playful with people. And
Yes.
so that day that I met you
Ingrid.
guys,
Yes.
you
Yes.
and Ingrid, I think pretty much every neighbor on the block has saved her for me. Because she doesn't want to come in that day. I was like, come in, let's go. And she's like, no, I'm out here. And so every neighbor has pretty much like, hey, can you grab History for me? And that's exactly what I said. Can you grab her and give her to
Awesome.
me? Because
There
she's
we
all
go.
friendly. And then, like you said, the rest
Yeah.
is history. So I'm gonna let
Yes.
her go
All
to
right,
my
Miss
daughter.
History.
She's made her guest appearance.
Mr. History.
Um, so yeah, and so
So,
I'm
yeah.
Latosha Cox. I live up in Ramsey. I've been in this community here for 11 and a half years.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I'll just go say that for right now. But then your question again was regards to like curious or curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when we were kind of just getting to know each other a little bit, talking about what we might dig into today, I know one of the threads that rose to the surface in your own leadership journey, even in your faith journey, has been how curiosity has opened doors for you. And
Hmm.
so, you know, and really the landscape is open as to where you want to start in your story about the doors that curiosity has opened. Obviously, we can't tell the whole story today, but
Yeah.
where are you now, and how has that experience of just being curious fueled your own journey?
Mm. I mean, I'm gonna start with like I arrived here in Ramsey from the Twin Cities my whole life due to curiosity.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
right? We looked at homes as far south as like Egan, Apple Valley, Burnsville, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And then we landed up here in Ramsey. So
mm,
just being curious of a new neighborhood, curious of
mm,
new opportunities. At the time, we had one daughter, our oldest, who is now 17, heading to her senior year at Anoka High School. She was in kindergarten
mm,
at a school called Crossroads in St. Paul. And
mm,
so we were just curious, me and my ex-husband, to provide new opportunities and new experiences for our lives. And then
mm-hmm,
also we were, intentionally trying to grow our family,
mm-hmm,
have more children and other things. And so curiosity and a lot of things have kept me grounded here.
mm, mm-hmm,
And as well as like this is the home, this is the foundation that has been with me through many seasons of transition
mm.
in this 11 and a half years that we've been here.
Okay. Okay. So, in as we were prepping for this, you had mentioned being, growing up in St. Paul, attending high school there. And so I would imagine, even though it's still part of the Twin Cities, coming to Ramsey in a little bit, maybe it's a little bit of a different world from even where you grew up. And then putting down some roots with your own home and supporting your daughter in her education journey has awakened new opportunities.
Absolutely. It's awakened new opportunities and it's awakened some doors closing,
Okay.
right? And I say a door closing is that like me and my ex-husband were divorced. So
Okay.
that's why he's my ex-husband and
Yeah.
June we celebrated our 5-year divorce anniversary.
Mm.
Um and like in this space that we've been in this home that we had one daughter, had another, we had a first dog, Astro Lewis Cox, that's no longer with us. We
Mm-hmm.
rehoused him to someone else 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And to be curious and just to be okay with knowing that if things no longer serve you, they have to go.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
Right? And that's including my marriage. That's including, we'll talk more about my Black girl sabbatical
Yeah. Yeah.
journey. That includes like, I have 2 basements and I've been getting rid of things for like 5 years
Mm.
that things that, like a dollhouse that's down there that my friend Leah, she paid me 2 months ago, but she needs to pick it up.
Mm.
Right. And so like,
Mm-hmm.
I've really just been in this whole 11 and a half years that we've been here. It's just curious about new opportunities, doors that need to close, journeys that I need to experience, people that I need to see, opportunities we talked about in prepping for this. Like I'm attending my second mission trip next year,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And so the house created the foundation, but there's all kinds of things around
Mm-hmm.
me
Mm-hmm.
that that allowed me to like grow in
Mm.
my own
Mm-hmm.
leadership, in my own personal and professional career.
So something that's rising to the surface as I'm listening to you is this idea that curiosity sometimes gives us the courage to close a chapter, to consider a new chapter. And you mentioned, going through a divorce is a significant uh, kind of texture of closing a chapter. As you've gone through that, you've felt this desire to be better and not bitter. And I think I would guess that every divorce situation has its unique texture. And I think yours is quite unique. I don't know what you feel comfortable sharing or not sharing, but how has that shaped you? How has curiosity allowed you to close some things and remain open to some things and look to new possibilities from that perspective?
Yeah, so um I'm writing my first book, like After Divorce, Be Better, Not Bitter.
Mm-hmm.
Um a lot of people in separation and divorce, they become very bitter.
Mm-hmm.
They be very, very cold, very angry, very resentful. Many aren't open to love again,
Mm-hmm.
right? They've been this like level of hurt and scorn. And
Mm-hmm.
so when my marriage was going well, I was like, oh, I never want to be bitter like these people, like
Right.
these women, these men that just can't get over the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And my book is not just for people who are married, it's for anyone that's ever been in a relationship,
Okay.
anyone who's ever had a heartbreak,
Okay.
right? Because we all need to heal and grieve post these relationships. We
Mm-hmm.
gave our all. We loved this person. We supported them. We were with them. And then they're no longer a part of our lives, but we're grieving them because they're with someone else or they're doing something else and they're not a
Mm-hmm.
part of the life that we created. And so I decided to separate from
Hmm.
my ex-husband when I had a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so what I'll share that I feel comfortable talking about right now
Hmm.
is that, without going into
Sure.
whatever detail,
Right.
but my ex-husband is a compulsive gambler.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
so addiction has
Hmm.
really been on the forefront for the last 10 years, actually. I've known him 20.
Hmm.
10 of the years he has battled with this. Um, and it made me to look at money differently,
Hmm.
finances differently. My background is in finances and worked at two banks and a credit union, worked in philanthropy, in charge of a $9 million grantee portfolio. So I knew money,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And I managed money, and I'm really
Hmm.
grateful for that, or we wouldn't have this home. If
Sure.
it was, it was his job to make the money, it was my job to manage it. Now,
Okay.
if he made it and managed it, we would be homeless,
Yeah. Serious.
right?
Yeah.
And so I made the really courageous and tough decision, that I deserve better.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
My children deserve better. We don't need to be in this level of chaos,
Hmm.
and stress,
Hmm.
and financial anguish.
Hmm.
And I made that tough decision, and I just vowed that doesn't matter. Like we always didn't see eye to eye, but doesn't
Yes.
I always tell them like the more that you try to do things to hurt me or intentionally like not be there to support the kids or you're dealing with your own thing, the more God continues to bless me.
Hmm.
I would tell
Hmm.
them that over and over,
Hmm.
like you have allowed addiction to get in the way from
Hmm.
being the man that I married
Hmm.
and being the father to our daughters who are now 9 and 17, about to be 18.
Hmm.
Um, and we deserve better. We
Hmm.
don't deserve this. We didn't sign up for this. And so
Yeah.
it allowed me financially to go after my career, develop my leadership development.
Hmm.
I used to work at the Big Night Foundation in educational grant making.
Hmm.
Um, I was there for 3 years, and in that time, I went through separation and divorce.
Hmm. Hmm.
The hardest thing that I have accomplished in my life. Um, and I was able to thrive in my position as a
Hmm.
Black woman.
Hmm. Yeah.
I had very supportive white supervisors and VPs and so forth. Um, and I know what thriving looks like. I know what support looks and feels like. And
Hmm.
I know what choosing yourself
Hmm.
looks and feels like.
Hmm. That's really interesting. This is a question I've always wrestled with, and maybe you can give me some perspective, is this idea of choosing yourself. Because growing up Christian, um, sometimes uh, even the thought of choosing yourself might, in some people's eyes, appear like not Christian, like we're supposed to be selfless or whatever. Um, but, and I know you're a person of faith. So how would you respond to somebody that's like, choose yourself? How is that God honoring? Like, how is that, um, because there would even be some people that say, well, you shouldn't divorce because that's not what the Bible says. And yet, you chose to set some boundaries. You chose to say, for the
Yeah,
well-being of my daughters, for my own well-being,
yeah.
and yet to set those boundaries in a loving way. So can you flesh that out a little bit?
I think in the Christian world, in the world of the different religions, we're taught the we're taught that we're supposed to be giving,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Giving of our time, giving of our money, giving of our resources. We're supposed to be a part of a community, part of a family, um, part of something larger than itself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but the part that we don't really think about is how do we are going to pour into our own cup to be full so that we
Hmm.
can give,
Okay.
right? And so
Okay.
it's not a selfish thing. What
Okay.
happens if you give, 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 you're right, and you can't pour from an empty cup. But we
Right.
still do though,
Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
that'll we'll talk about that more with my Black Girl sabbatical, but
Mm.
we give and we deplete ourselves, and that's not
Mm.
healthy. And I
True.
don't think God would want us to be walking around internally dead, not sleeping, not caring for ourselves, but
Mm-hmm.
out here in the world giving way more than what we can in our capacity to.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one of my Black Girl Sabbatical sayings is choose you and win.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
And
Okay.
that
Okay.
just really has to go with like choosing yourself, prioritizing yourself, walking, meditating, praying, filling
Mm-hmm.
yourself and your cup up first, so
Mm-hmm.
that way you can continue to do the work that you've been called to do.
So it's really about we can't give what we don't have.
Yeah.
And if we're not choosing kind of self-care, choosing rest, choosing boundaries, choosing just the things that fill the cup.
Yeah. That
Mm-hmm.
if we don't do that, we're just slowly spiraling down our
Hmm.
own deficit,
Hmm.
trying to support others. And we have limited capacity as human beings.
And it's interesting to differentiate what is choosing healthy self-care versus choosing self-sabotage. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes people think, you know, whatever the addiction is. I had a mentor. He was also my boss, but he used to say addiction is the way that we medicate our pain,
Yes.
and it can
Yeah.
take the form of substances or gambling or like wonky relationships. Um, and so when you're talking about choosing you, it's really choosing a healthy self care, not a self sabotage. And sometimes, why do you think some people sometimes we get that confused where we choose the self sabotage versus like the self care?
Because self-sabotaging is easier,
Okay.
right? It's
Okay.
it's it's easier, and the brain, right? Like the
Uh-huh.
brain, the mind can be your best friend,
Uh-huh.
cheerleading you on. You
Yeah.
got this,
Arr.
right? And the brain can always also tell you you don't have this, you're
Mm-hmm.
horrible, you're not
Mm-hmm.
smart, you're
Mm-hmm.
dumb, there's other people more qualified for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in another podcast, I talked about self-sabotaging in college. It took me 17 years to graduate college. 17
I
years.
think that's a record. So,
Right? I started college at um at St. Kate's,
uh-huh.
College of St. Catherine in nursing, and then I ended up finishing at Augsburg and majored in English in education. And um so I started in 2000, I finished or finally got my piece of paper in 2017.
Mm.
And on and off, so it wasn't the full time on and
Mm-hmm.
off, got married, had a kid, got another kid, climbed up the corporate ladder. I worked
Mm-hmm.
full time while I was in school,
Okay.
right?
So we're just
Switched
twiddling your
majors.
thumbs. Yeah, yeah,
I
you
wasn't
were.
twiddling my thumbs,
Yeah.
right? I was being an adult while
Yes.
also trying to finish this degree
Yeah.
after I've had children, after I've
Mm.
gotten married,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Where doing it before you become a super adult
Yes.
with other people's responsibilities, right? And other people who rely on you, it makes it a lot easier. And so one of my times, like talking to my advisor, Kevin, who I've known 28 years. He was my advisor at St. Paul Central High School with Upward Bound. And then when I went to Augsburg, I went there so that I knew I had someone to help me, hold me accountable to finish, you
Yeah.
know.
That's a real gift that you had that discernment to say, I know the people that are making a difference for me. I'm going to lean into that.
I'm gonna lean into that and allow them to continue to support me and mentor me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I applied to Metro State in Augsburg. I got into both. And I chose Augsburg because Kevin was there. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that
Mm-hmm.
he's been aware of a mentor of mine. He knows that if any type of support or things that I would need, as a married student parent, that he had my back,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, like, after like completing classes and doing all this, and I called him one day and I was like, Kevin,
Mm.
do you think I'm self-sabotaging?
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I think so, Tasha.
Hmm.
Right? And I had to sit with and wrestle with, I was scared to graduate.
Oh.
Because if you graduate, then what?
Mm. So rather than choosing curiosity in that situation, you were kind of like the fear was holding you back rather than I wonder what could be on the other side of that.
That part. That part. And it was me who named the thing, right? So that must have been God in the
Mm-hmm.
universe who told me what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me to call up my mentor and be all
Yeah.
like, is this what I'm doing? Because I've
Mm.
been here a long time and I've been telling you that I want to graduate. I've
Mm-hmm.
been taking these classes and it just don't seem like it's ever going to happen.
Mm.
Right? And so we do choose to self-sabotage. And I think, you know, sometimes it's intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. I
Yeah.
wasn't I wasn't intentionally trying to, like, I don't want this degree because
Yeah.
everything I was seeing and the actions that I was taking by still being committed to my
Mm-hmm.
education was doing it. However,
Yeah.
the fear unconsciously was like, oh, we don't really want to do this because then we got to really be a big girl grown up
Mm.
and like really finally chase your career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Finally do something with your degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the other part that I talked to Kevin about that day was survivor's guilt.
Hmm. Okay.
Not, they always talk about survivor's guilt when, with PTSD, with people who's been in traumatic instances or wars and,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that, or you've survived your whole family being, massacred or gun
Mm-hmm.
violence, right? We
Yeah.
talk about that with that, but we don't talk about it. And I talk about it, but in the world, we don't talk about survivor's guilt in regards to like growth in ourselves.
Hmm.
And so I am the oldest grandchild in both of my sides of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I am the second grandchild to graduate college, even
Okay.
with on and off for 17 years. And in that time, we have all kind of grandkids, all
Like
kind of great grandkids that was born.
he's like, all the rest of y'all have plenty of time to graduate before I did.
Right? You have plenty of time to graduate before I do. And they're like, when is Tasha going to be done? What did she did this? Oh, is she ever going to be done? And so I
Hmm.
had my cousin, she's the baby of the grandkids. She got her bachelor's degree this year at Metro State. And
Nice.
then her sister um, climbed up the ladder from being a
Hmm.
medical assistant to LPN to
Nice.
associate's RN to a bachelor's RN.
Yeah.
Right? And so, um, but in that time, I'm thinking, like if I become successful, I'm gonna outgrow, I wanted to continue to be Tasha, but when you have accolades behind your name
Hmm.
as the first or of the first, right? It had me feeling guilty
Hmm.
for my accomplishments and for my successes
Is
and
that
being guilty for surviving and accomplishing nice things in life as a Black woman.
hmm. Can you flesh that? I mean, like, is that like because you're maybe an outlier within your own kind of background that then it's like, how do I make sense of this? And I mean, what's driving that guilt?
I think it's it's being like an outsider. It's kind of like being a black sheep because you're
Hmm.
in a new community,
Hmm.
right? I'm in a community of educated people with more
Hmm.
opportunities,
Hmm.
right? It's like going to another like classes. I'm going to a next class and everybody else,
Hmm.
right? So I'm going, from lower class to like middle, middle class, and what if
Hmm.
everybody else is still in the classes two behind you,
Yeah.
right? Or if they're not owning homes and different things, it's like we're on different levels
Mm.
professionally or educational wise, right? But for a lot of people, um, they like to tote their accolades,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? For a lot of different communities, where you went to school,
Hmm.
what your degree is, where you work,
Hmm.
is more important than who you are as an individual.
Ah. And so on one side, you could come from like, and while for you it was within the black community, I think about a kid that I was on the Boundary Waters with.
Hmm.
Grew up in Kentucky. I think his grandfather was in Alabama. He was telling me this story about interacting with his grandfather. He's like, you know what, kid, the problem was you just got too much. You don't have common sense. You got too much knowledge in your head, and so for him, he's this gringo like me, and he was feeling that same kind of tension in a way in his experience. But then on the flip side, you can come from an experience where you might be one of the few educated people in your family, and then you find yourself around a group of people where that's just a common thing.
Yeah,
And then the comparison becomes, well, what about your kind of like pedigree
yeah,
from your past? And so I think when you're talking about survivor's guilt as a function of one's educational journey or professional journey, you
yeah,
can kind of feel like caught between two worlds. This world that where there's not a lot of educational background, and this world where it's not just that you're educated, but what's your pedigree?
right.
Is that an accurate? I mean, I don't know. Help me.
No, that is accurate account, right? And I just mentioned this to my mom maybe about a month or so ago.
Hmm.
Right? Because it is being between two worlds. Like for the longest, my whole life, I remember my mom, and my family, like saying, you're going to go to college. You're
Hmm.
going to go to
Hmm.
college. You're going to go to
Yeah.
college. So I had no choice but
Hmm.
to go to college,
Hmm.
right? And then I have four brothers
Hmm.
who all of them have started college. None of them have finished.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Right? And so I talked to my mom about the lack of supports
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I'm a first gen college, graduate. The lack of supports, the lack of disconnect that you say that you want us to go to college, but there's no support so that we finish.
Yeah.
There's no financial supports to buy books for
Yeah.
us, to support tuition, to fundraise if we need it, to it's just like you need to go and you need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And it's more than that. And I told her about like, yo, it took me 17 years and the pressure of when you're going to be done doesn't really help with it.
Hmm.
Right? And
Hmm.
who I got children now, so I need people to watch my kids.
Hmm.
Right? And all other kinds of levels of supports that many first generation our parents have no idea how to support because they've never
Hmm.
experienced it.
Yeah.
Right? But I talked to her about self-sabotage and I talked to her about you wanted me to be in these two worlds, but no one's taught me how to navigate these two worlds
Hmm. Hmm.
and how I feel guilty for achieving.
Hmm.
And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I all the success and all my things, a lot of my life until these last 3 years, I downplayed who I really was.
Hmm. Hmm.
I downplayed what I really do at work. People didn't know until like after. Like I just told my dad.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
year,
Mm-hmm.
like my mom knew my night job was real fancy because, she came to an event and she was like, invite me to everything. This is nice, right? But it, right? Like this is nice, right? She's arrived, at a place that was very fortunate for me to be there, a blessing to be there because there were so many Black people before who had applied to be within philanthropy over the years or at the McKnight Foundation who didn't get it,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
had community leaders thanking and congratulating me when I arrived there.
Mm-hmm.
For the
Like
ancestors, they were telling me.
from the Black community. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For
Okay.
for the Black community, right? So it just wasn't until a few months ago that I showed my dad, like, let me show you my coworkers, and like this was my office, and like all the
Mm.
things that I posted on social media that he's not
Yeah.
on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm really a big deal. Like Google my
Mm.
name.
Mm. Mm.
And then my dad was like, what?
And you
Right?
were
But
all,
I
it took you
Go
a while
ahead.
to be, it took you a while to be like, I can share this with my dad. It sounds like you initially were hesitant to do that. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I think it took me a while to 100% be my authentic self all the time,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Okay.
And to shine bright like the diamond that I am all the time,
Okay.
not just
Okay.
shine bright at work and all of those
Yeah.
accolades or at school, right? Those were
Okay.
the accolades came from,
Uh-huh.
right? Because I didn't want to shine too bright
Yeah.
with family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who, everyone's working and doing their own thing and stuff like that. But my accolades that I was sharing, they didn't get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, that's nice,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
you don't really get the life that I'm doing. Like, oh, Tasha travels for work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like she travels here and there. That's she just travels, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really take the time for them to like get to know what I really do until like now they know and they're more supportive and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You had to get to that place where you could shine bright, where in a way you could let your origin world into your
Yeah.
present world. And
Yeah.
I think in some ways, when we kind of integrate our past and present, it kind of is a gift to both. It's a gift to the people that
Mm.
brought us forward, and it's a gift to the people we're currently walking with, because it's like it's kind of an integration. Like when God allows us to finally become comfortable in our own skin, we become a blessing to both worlds.
I'm going to speed up to my Black Girl sabbatical so that we can
Okay.
talk about like what
Sure.
I'm doing now and
Sure.
how my past 100% helps support what I'm doing now.
So what is Latosha Cox up to now? To find out, tune in next week to Intersect, where we'll hear about her Black Girl sabbatical and much more. Until then, go and connect with the people in your circle of influence, looking for the intersect between their story and your story. See you next week on Intersect.